Good afternoon. We are delighted that you are here this afternoon for a day of remembrance, a day of reflection, and I believe by the end of this hour you will say a day of education as well. I'm Mark Wilson, Director of the Caroline Marshall Drawn Center for the Arts and Humanities, and we should have built a bigger building to hold all of you today. Look at you. A wonderful challenge to have. We have filled just about every seat, and as a matter of fact, once our speakers come forward, there will be 2 empty seats up here, and so 2 people in the back, you can feel free to come up front. I think they would be happy for you to take those seats. Matter of fact, there'll be 3 seats, and so you are welcome here, and you will find yourself at home. We are delighted to call on Dr. Joan Herre, who is a visiting professor in the Department of Journalism in the College of Liberal Arts, who has masterfully organized really important partners and people together for this day and for this evening and for tomorrow. And she will mention those events, I know. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Joan Herre.
Thank you. Good day to everyone. It is an honor and a sacred privilege to have this opportunity to introduce an amazing woman, someone whom each of us, and I'll just speak, if you don't mind, from my own personal narrative, someone who in my household growing up, that she was more than just a hero. She and her family, and even her sister Addie Mae Collins, they were angels of the movement, if you will, and movement meaning the civil rights movement. And it is not by chance that today that we would also be celebrating, unfortunately, the assassination of a person, another angel, who was referred to as the drum major of justice, the drum major of righteousness. And so if you don't mind at this time, because literally 50 years ago from today, if we flash back, many of you were not even, perhaps the Holy Parent knew that you were coming here. But many of you were not even a seed in your parents' loins. So if you would, though, just reflect with me on the fact that 50 years ago today, what time is it now?
104.
104. So 50 years ago today, in approximately 5 to 6 hours, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have been shot. So if you would, let's just have a moment of reflection, quiet time, in any way that you choose. Thank you for remembering Dr. King. I humbly say that on last night, I found myself surprisingly invited at the last moment because of work, and this is not about me, but still amazed how things worked out. I found myself being at the Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee last night because I was invited to give support to the King family. And Ambassador Andrew Young, who's also a minister in the United Church of Christ, was one of the speakers. And he made a very poignant statement, which applies to why we are here and particularly celebrating the person who represents the epitome of bravery. Ambassador Young said that in his travels to all of the countries on the continent of Africa, that the elders have shared with him that when a person physically transitions, when a person physically dies, yes, their body leaves us. But as long as we say that person's name, and in this case, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., then that person is still with us. That legacy still lives on. And it is within the context of his legacy that I have the honor to introduce to you and to help to move the conversation along, to hear the story of a person who represents the epitome of bravery, courage, boldness, and that is Sarah Collins-Rudolph, who was 12 years old on September 15th, 1963, when she and her sisters and friends were attending a church service at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. They were preparing for church service because they were in the building, the church building, because they were attending Sunday school. And with that said, her bio is on the back of your programs. I invite you to read it when you leave, but at this moment, I ask you if you would please give Sarah Collins-Rudolph a warm, respectful Auburn welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So, Mrs. Rudolph?
Yes.
Or do you prefer, what do you prefer?
Sarah.
Sarah.
Rudolph.
Okay.
Either one.
All right. Well, first and foremost, welcome to Auburn University.
Thank you.
I would like, if you would, if you don't mind, starting out, can you reflect back, and I apologize first to ask you to recall that moment, and I also thank you for sharing that moment with us.
Yes, I can recall that moment, you know, on,
Yes. Is it on green? Okay.
yes, September 15th was Youth Sunday at the 16th Street Baptist Church, and we were so excited because we was going to do the duties of the adults, but that Sunday we didn't get a chance to do it because of the bombing. I remember how we woke up that morning. We walked to church. It was my sister Janie and Addie and I, and we walked to church and we were having such a good time. Janie had a little purse and we were throwing it and catching it all the way to church. And when we arrived, we went down to the basement. Our class was in the basement of the church. Janie's class was upstairs. So we went down to the basement to freshen up. And while we was in the basement, we decided to just stay there because we were late anyway, so we didn't go to our class. And also we didn't like our teacher, so we just stayed. And while we was in the ladies' lounge, I was looking out the door and waiting for our class to turn out. Our class sit out in the middle of the floor where I can see her. So I seen Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, and Carol Robinson. They came into the ladies' lounge, and they went on the other side where the stalls were located. So after they came out the stalls, Denise walked over to Addie. Addie was sitting on the couch, and she turned around and said, "Addie, try to sash on my dress." And Addie reached out like that to tie it, and all of a sudden, I heard the sound, boom, and all I could do was say, "Jesus," and I called her name, Addie, 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 but she didn't answer. So what I thought the other girls had, they ran back into the Sunday school area. So all of a sudden I heard someone say, "Somebody bombed the 16th Street Church." And it was one of our deacons that was upstairs. He told me later on, he said he had heard the noise downstairs. So he was coming downstairs, he was gonna take the steps. So when he looked down, the bomb had blew the steps away. And what he did, he jumped down and looked into the hole where the bomb blew in. And he seen me standing there, and I was standing there bleeding. And I couldn't see anything because I was blinded in both my eyes. So he came in and picked me up and carried me to the ambulance, and they rushed me over to Hillman Hospital. They changed it now. It's UAB Hospital. So when I got there, the doctor, nurse, they told me, said, lay it on the cot because the eye doctor wasn't in to check me out. So that's what I did. And while I laid there, my sister Janie, she came in, and I asked her, I said, where is Addie? And she said that Addie had hurt her back, but she was going to come, see me tomorrow. And I said, okay. So they rushed me on up to the operate on my eyes. And when I got back into my room, my mother was waiting on me. And she told me that the latest lounge, all the girls that was in the latest lounge with me, they all was killed. I was the only one that had survived. So all I could do was just wonder, why did they kill those girls? Because all of them was sweet girls. We came to church to learn about the Lord. And all of a sudden, four young girls was killed that Sunday morning.
Thank you for sharing that. How much time did you spend in the hospital?
A couple of months. And while I was in the hospital, they took the bandage off my eyes. The bandage was on my eyes for about a week. And they took the bandages off, and the doctor asked me, what do you see out of your left eye? At that time, I could see just a little light. And when he took the bandage off my right eye, he said, what do you see? I said, I can't see anything. So I was blinded in my right eye from the bomb.
Within the context of your physical challenge, and today you're still living with that challenge?
Yes, I still live with it. At that time, people didn't understand a 12 years old going through a bombing like that. They didn't counsel me, and I had to go, back to school. I was in a terrible condition because I was nervous, and I was so fearful. And just to go back to school, like in that way, my grades had dropped. I wasn't the same anymore.
So it wasn't just physical because of your eyes, but also emotional and a traumatic experience.
Yes, I was always afraid. Every time I would hear a loud sound, I would just jump because the blast was so loud. I know my husband, his church was on the south side, and our church was on the north side, and it was just that loud. He said that when their church heard it, they turned out because they had got the news that they had bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church, and when I hear sound now, I still jump. It still scares me.
The tragedy occurred at your church, but in our conversations and even within this conversation, you talked about Jesus. You said Jesus and the Lord.
Yes, I always talk about him because, when I began to see those pictures of how the church was bombed, it was really in a bad shape, and I know it was Jesus that brought me out through that because I know that it had to be him because I know more than that's supposed to have happened to me because when I seen those pictures, I always just thank God that he brought me out.
Just for a moment, I know you weren't able to attend your sister's homegoing service, as we say in the context of the Black church, or the funeral. But did Dr. King give the eulogy for your sister as well as, three other?
Yeah,
or two?
Three other girls.
Okay.
The eulogy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't able to attend, like I said, I was still in the hospital. But I did hear the, eulogy service. I got note of it,
Mm-hmm. How talk more, if you would, about why you still have faith and why you still attend church at the 16th Street Baptist Church.
Well, right now, I don't go to 16th Street Church. We went back for about 2 Sundays, but after those 2 Sundays, I was afraid to go back because I thought another bomb would go off. So we left there. But now I am still in church, but I go to a church called Perfecting the Saints Ministry. And I know that, during that time, that's where my healing come from. Because I went to, started going to church. Before church, I just explain it like this. Before church, I thought maybe drinking and smoking marijuana would help me, help my nervous condition. But it didn't. So I joined a church called Perfecting the Saints Church. And so that I began to learn about God, and before Perfecting the Saints, I joined this church. It was the Lighthouse. And when I went there, they was talking about getting saved and sanctified, going down in the water, being baptized. So I tried that instead. So when I tried that, and I joined the church, and I remember sitting in the church at one Sunday, how this prophet came, and he seen me sitting there, and I was sitting still, nervous, and I was so fearful. That bomb just put fear in me from being in a church. But anyway, he came over to me, and he said, he said, come here. So I walked up, and he began to look at me, and he said, tonight is your night. And he started telling me what God was showing him. He said, God is showing me where you have a nervous condition, and also you have a lot of fear. And I said, yes. And he said, well, tonight is your night. And he began to pray, and he laid his hand on me. And I hit the floor. You know how you hit the floor? So I hit the floor, and I got back up after he had prayed. And all those things that I was afraid to do in church, I couldn't even testify in a church. I really couldn't hardly sit in a church. So after he prayed, I got up, I got on the usher board. I went up there on the pulpit. I was the devotion leader. And then I went up there in the choir one day and sang with the choir, and I couldn't even carry a note. But anyway, I knew then that God was real, because he was the one that brought all that out of me, all that fear out of me. And ever since then, I've been in church.
Not only, have you been in church, but you are living out the meaning of church, the theological meaning of church, that church is community. And so you do not hesitate to share your narrative. If you would talk about the reality of the fact that the church was bombed because of racism. And unfortunately, that was 50 years ago, and today we still live in a context of a society where there is the integration of racism and religion. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, during that time, I remember how, first of all, Martin Luther King came to the 16th Street Church where he would have his meetings, and the people were pouring in, and he would always talk about nonviolence. And telling the people, let's get together. They didn't have to hate on us simply because we was black. We wanted a future, and we wanted our civil rights just like, Caucasians. And what they did during that time, you know, hating, it began to put hate in me because of the fact that what they did to those girls and by me losing my sight. And I began to hate. And I know before then, we were just always taught to love one another. That's what we was going to church to do, to love our brothers, love our sisters, love all races. We didn't show any hate toward other people. But like I said, I began to hate also. But I began to pray, and I began to listen to the Word of God, how He began to tell us we should love each other. We should love one another like we love ourselves. We don't do harm to ourselves. Why should we do harm to other people? So I began to stay in the Word of God, and I stopped hating, because it wasn't going to bring my sisters and my friends back. It wasn't going to bring my sight back. So what I did, I began to stay in church and just love, because I know hate is of the devil. I call him the enemy. The devil is our enemy. And if we put that hate in our heart, we following him. We're not following God. Because Jesus, he was all about love. He was going around doing good. He was healing the sick, feeding the hungry, raising the dead, and all these good things. But when we listen to the enemy, all we do is learn these things that are, bad.
So if I can use your words, so racism is the enemy?
Yes, racism is. We should just love one another. We shouldn't look at each other, because we all are the human race. That's what we are, human. Because God made us in his image, and we are human. But we don't have to hate each other because of our different color. God made us all, and he didn't make us all the same color. He made us different colors. And I believe he did that just to see how we was going to get along in this world. And because that's what I did. So I don't believe he's been too satisfied with what's been going on.
In our conversations, Sarah, I've asked you, and I'd like for you to share, why is it important for you to tell your story, and especially within the context of history, herstory, and the tragic situation of the state of racism and religion, and not only just in the South, but in America, or we could say in some aspects in the world.
Well, it's important to tell that story, because, a lot of people, especially young people, they wasn't back there then. So they need to really know how Martin Luther King and all these other people gave their life up for things to be better for us, and they need to learn that we shouldn't go back that way. We shouldn't go back, because they gave their life up for us to have a better life. And they need to really learn that history, since they wasn't born during that time.
So what do you say to the young people in the room? When I say the young people, all people, particularly to the students. They are our present and our future leaders.
Oh, it's just this time that we should always try to make a better world, We should try to make things better instead of making things worse and go back. Just get your education and learn and stop. They shouldn't hate each other because we are different. So we just got to live their life like Martin Luther King was living. We don't have to be violent. We can love one another. So we should always remember that when we see people are different, just still love each other. So that's what my message is all about. When I go around, love wins. Hate don't win. So we should always remember that, young people, because just because we are different, we don't have to hate.
So that answer, that your response, I asked you a question with regards particularly to students. What do you say to the rest of us who are not students, who are past our youthful ages? I'm just going to say myself. And within the context of the reality of the intersectionality of racism and religion in America.
Oh, the older people, you know, they say the older people know the way. You know, we should know the way. So teach the younger people the way. See, we have settled out. Let's settle down and just give them the good advice, and so they can grow up in life to get good jobs and all that. Stand by the young people, because some of them just don't know the way. So let's teach them the way. Let them know about what happened then, how Martin Luther King gave his life up, that we can have a better life, you know. Teach them that, because I've been going around the world, and I try to teach these young people. You don't have to be bullied, you know, so you just teach them the way. Yeah, the right way to live and love. Because I could be the same, I could have been the same way, for what happened to me. I lost my sight simply because somebody hate my kind and kill my sister and friend, simply because somebody hate my kind, black. That's why I say my kind. I'm blind in one eye today, and still my left eye is getting worse. So we don't have to do that. You don't have to hate like that.
You're hearing the voice of George Rudolph. And George Rudolph is also the epitome of bravery. He is a Vietnam veteran. So with that said, why don't we open the floor for questions at this time? Any questions? Yes.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I wonder if how you feel about some of the media that has memorialized. An example would be Paul McCartney's Blackbirds, or Spike Lee's Four Little Girls, or Selma. When you, like, for example, in the beginning of that movie Selma, that's how it starts, and it was so profound, to me, that I think most of the theater were weeping when that occurred. How do those kind of things, how do you feel when you hear or see things like that about that event?
Let me say one thing, please. Ma'am, that Selma, it was not accurate.
It was.
To start off, it was not accurate. In the beginning scene, they had the girls coming down some steps. That was not right. This girl was in the ladies' lounge downstairs in the basement of the church. So that's Hollywood. And people have made movies about this incident, but they don't do it right. See, number one, if I'm gonna write a book about you, I'm gonna come to you and get the information. I ain't gonna go to Google, I ain't gonna go to the internet. I'm gonna come to you. Get the right information. When they made that, they didn't consult with Sarah. So Spike Lee.
There's no doubt that, I'm sure that they have probably massaged the actual event to suit the audience, but you can't not be impacted by just the sound. I mean, even though it wasn't real, it was staged for our, to awaken us, to make us realize how horrible this event was for you and your sister and her friends and the community.
Well, in a way, it wasn't. They let us see it, but before it went anywhere, we went in, and I think wasn't nobody in the theater but George, me, and the people that were doing the projection. But anyway, while we were sitting there, it scared me, because I didn't think that noise, when it boomed, I was almost about to jump out of my seat because I didn't know that was going to even happen. Because, like my husband was singing, it just didn't happen that way. And that was the thing that I just didn't really like about it. I wish they had, asked me or something about it before that they put it up, because it just really shook me up. Yeah, I thought I was in another bomb, and we went off, boom, and I jumped like that. So that what got me.
See, my wife suffered with, like I do. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. My wife, she suffered with PTSD because those loud sounds affect her.
Yeah.
When we were sitting there looking at it, we jumped. It got to me. It got to Sarah. Just that loud noise. And but like I say, that's Hollywood.
Yes, Dr. Okay.
You had mentioned earlier that when after everything was over with and you went back to the church, no counseling was done, nothing was done with any of y'all. Is that true with everybody that was at that church? Have you ever, like, let me get my words correct, coming back, did you see the other people that were there, how did they respond when they went back into the 16th Street?
Well, when I went back, I was still about 12, so I really didn't know how they. Now I was 13, I had a birthday. When I went back, I didn't notice how they act. Only thing I just felt, I always had a lot of fear. Cause when my mama took me back, she sat right there where the bomb was at. Where it was, right there in that same spot. That was her seat, and I just couldn't sit there anymore, cause that was just too close for me.
Go ahead.
Okay. We are approximately same age, and I grew up in Alabama and remember the bombing very well. I wondered, I know tensions were high in Birmingham at that time. Did the church have any warning at all? Had they been kind of on a target list, or had there been any talk of perhaps a bombing in the churches, or was it just one of those crazy moments where people did the crazy and did it?
Well, that's where Martin Luther King would have his mass meetings.
Okay.
And I think it was Target,
Right.
and they wanted to stop the meetings by bombing the church, and I really believe that was the reason why.
Was he supposed to be there that day?
No, he had been there several times, because I remember on Easter Sunday how he stood on the top of the steps, and he had his bullhorn, and he was calling the people to come on in to the mass meetings. Now that was the closest I ever seen them, but during that particular Sunday, we was on our way to see a Ten Commandment movie. They have those movies downstairs, but he was standing up on top of the steps telling the people, come on in, and the church, they was going up the steps. A lot of people was going to the mass meeting.
If I can add from a historical perspective based on research and interviews with different members of SCLC as well as the King family, in tying in with what Sarah is saying, that one of the reasons it is suspected that the church was targeted is the fact that it was a site where it was also not only mass meetings, but also a training site to prepare young people as well as adults how to deal with violence when they were protesting. Yes.
That was my
Yeah.
suspicion.
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing with us today. I'm curious, as we talk about the past, I'd also talk a little bit about our future as a country and what you think that our elected officials and leaders should be doing to create a more unified place for all of us.
Well, for one thing, he need to speak up about all this going on with these white supremacist groups, Ku Klux Klans, and he need to talk up and begin to let them know it's time out for all that violence. That's what he really needs to start speaking to people about, because the way he talk, he seems like he's a class. That's the way I look at it. He seems like he's white supremacy. He don't seem like he care too much about our kind. In other words, he for the Caucasian people, but he's not for us. And he's supposed to be for all the people, every race.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Humbly, but I just wanted to ask, in like your recounting of the story, and you said that there was, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but a man helped, he carried you out. Going, I know you were young, but did you and that man continue like your relationship? Did you all ever like discuss what happened? Or how did that play out?
Yes, I'm doing a book now, and I had to go over there and I talked to him about what had happened. That's how I found out what had happened. He already had told me that he was the one that brought me out of the church. And when I began to speak to him about my book that I was writing, that's when he began to tell me what had happened on that day about him coming in and getting me out, because he was letting me know how they had cars parked right there in front of the church, and his car was total. Just the vibration of that bomb, his car was total, and many more that was parked was total. And I began to know him. He was sick. He just had his funeral, I think, about 2 years ago. So he have passed now. But I let the Birmingham News know that he was the one that brought me out of there that Sunday morning. And they put it on my page and congratulated him for bringing me out of the church that day. So I didn't get a chance to do too much talking to him, but I did talk to him for a while. Yes.
You said that the cars out front were bombed, were shattered or
Yeah.
exploded or whatever.
Yeah.
Where did the bomb actually go off? Did it go off outside or was it inside?
The bomb went off under the steps. They put the bomb right there under the steps. Yeah, the upstairs step. They came down like that, the steps like that, and they placed the bomb under there. And that's why when the bomb went off, the girls were standing right there in front of the couch by the window. And when the bomb went off, it just killed them instant.
That bomb had a timer on it, so they placed it there late at night or early that morning. The bomb went off at 10:22. So the bomber had a timer on it.
Did they ever find out who?
Yeah, they did.
But look how long it took, though.
Yeah.
Look how long it took.
One of them actually died before he was ever brought back.
Yeah, Cash did, yeah. And
Were you called to testify?
yes, all three
At
of them,
all of them?
yes.
I wrote a letter. It's one surviving Klan member left. One survived. He's at St. Clair. And I told Sarah, I said, Sarah, I'm gonna write a letter on your behalf just to see what he would say. And I wasn't expecting him to write back. And he wrote back. He wrote me 2 times. I got the letters at home. Well, the first letter said,
Sister Sarah called
he
me
called
sister.
my wife Sister Sarah. I didn't have nothing to do with this. That's what he claimed. That's what he said in the letter. So I took it for what it was. You know, he said he didn't do it, but the people in Montgomery said, yeah, he did, because he came up for parole. It's been 2 years. He came up for parole, and they wanted the families to come down there and say some words. So we went down there, and Sarah forgave him. But she couldn't hold that hate, and I'm with her on that. You got to forgive. And she said, say what she had to say. But then, you know, they say no parole. So we go back in 5 more years, or really 3 more years. We got to go back down now.
So why is it that you forgave the men?
Because I learned that when you hold unforgiveness, you don't do nothing but get sick. You know, you get arthritis and rheumatism and all that. So I didn't want that. So I had to forgive them. So I didn't want to get sick like that. And I thank God he kept me.
That's what the Bible says. You got to forgive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell me what your life is like today? What do you do in the present?
Right now, I do a little cleaning work, and most of when just 2 days a week, and I go to church. I'm on the usher board, and I travel around. I travel around the United States a lot, you know, during Black History Month, and whoever calls, you know, I travel a lot, and I tell the people, talk to them and tell them about what happened during that time, because people want to know.
With that said, would you talk about the fact? Well, first of all, let me ask the question. Did you receive any support? Did the state ever award any money to you? And I know it's going to be hard, but Mr. Rudolph, let's Sarah share, because you're shaking your head.
No,
I guess it,
first of all, did compensate, Sarah? No. No, I'm mad about that, but
No, they didn't.
well, I got my own ideas about it. You know, they didn't like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
You tell us, Sarah.
Well, anyway, I after the bombing, I went to several places and to check and see that they have anything, you know, restitution, you know, for people that was injured in the bombing. They said they didn't. They didn't have anything, and plus the statute of limitation had run out, so they couldn't do anything. That's where it been.
I'd love to know when the book's coming out.
I hope it come out soon. I know it's coming out this year sometime. I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for it.
Waiting for it to happen.
Ma'am.
Waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to come out. The publisher have it, you know, so I'm waiting for the publisher to put it out. They said it was going to be out last month, but I don't know. I'm still waiting.
did I hear a voice? Was someone asking a question on the side?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
So do you think, Ms. Rudolph, that it took something this horrible to happen for the people of Birmingham and finally the white people of Birmingham to realize that something needed to be done, or do you think that Birmingham was more aware of what they
Well, you know, during that time when all that was going on, and it was all on the news, and the people began to see how the people of Birmingham was treated, especially the kids. You know how they was putting the dogs in the water hose, the high pressure water hose on the kids, and how they was swept down the street from the high pressure. And the people were seeing all this on TV, and they began to speak up. And President Kennedy, when President Kennedy was alive, you know, he wanted to send forces, armies and things like that. But I think that when Kennedy died, that's when Johnson began to let the people, let the civil rights bill being passed, because it was wrong for them to do us like that. All we wanted was our civil rights, just like they had their civil rights. Why should we do without jobs and things, you know, the things that we needed, because they hated our kind. So that's when the civil rights bill was passed in 64.
You said at the time that, if I'm right, that Kennedy never would have gotten more past. It was only because he was assassinated, Johnson Kennedy
Yeah.
got passed.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions? Yes.
So although it's clear that we still have a lot of work to do in our society on this topic, since the bombing, how do you think our society has improved? Like what positive changes with race relations have been made?
Yeah, it's a lot have been changed with race relationship, but when I look at things now, they look like they're going back. You know, so many of our young men are getting killed, and whites are doing it. The police are doing it, and the whites are getting off. You know, and I don't think that's right. So it shouldn't go back, and because they're killing our young men in numbers now, and it's time for all this to stop, because when you see these films about what's happening, I be wondering why are they getting off on you looking at what they're doing? They're killing our young men in their backs, they shooting them and killing them, but yet nothing is being done. So it's time. It's time out for that.
It's time for us to love each other. We can't be hating. We got to love one another. That's all it is. We must love one another. Because what is hatred accomplish? Nothing. We can't hate one another. We all shed the same blood. We got to love one another. And this will be a better world. We got to show love.
All right.
Yes.
You were talking about what we handle, what I see in Lee County, there's a lot of blacks killing blacks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
How are we gonna quit that? I mean, that's a big problem here in Lee County, you know.
Well,
How do you think we should handle
well, for one thing, I heard that the blacks are getting these guns by white people putting these crates of guns in their neighborhood, and they putting these crates in their neighborhood, and when these blacks get these guns, they killing one another.
saying white people are putting crates in their neighborhood?
I don't know if they white or whoever they are, but they putting these crates. They putting these crates in their neighborhood, and that's how they getting a hold of these guns. And they want our black people to kill up each other.
I like to, as the moderator, and within the intentionality of the context from whence I work, of being a journalist, and for the purpose of this discussion of race and religion, I like to lift up the fact that we're here at this moment listening to the narrative of a woman who survived the bombing due to racism. It is true, yes, that there's a high population of African American men and Latina men, black and brown. Basically, we live in a society of colorism. And so whenever the discussion begins about racism, then the question is asked, why are black people killing each other? So I like to ask the question, what does that have to do with racism?
Well, if she's going back and saying police are like police are the black people and the white police are getting out. I understand what you're saying, it's not right. But then again, I mean, it just sounded like it was just all black. We got such a problem with black and blacks with every conflict.
But right now we're talking about racism.
Okay, I'm sorry, I asked the question.
No, it's not, and that's why we're in a state, the reality of, and this is why the title of this theme that we're going to be addressing for the next couple of days and ongoing is, we're still in process of trying to become the beloved community. So first and foremost, please don't take it personal that I was directing saying you were wrong for asking the question. but as a moderator, as a journalist lifting up, you ask the question. The reality of the world is, too, that in this society where we're facing racism, we also have the issue of high poverty rates, of high unemployment, due to the lack of advantages based from a historical perspective of slavery, which is the reason why the two economists as well as historians talk about the fact that Native Americans, people of African descent, as well as Latinos, but more so we're in the context of, we're talking about the history of African Americans within the context of Dr. King, but at the end of the day that black people have not had the same opportunities economically. And so therefore that also impacts why there are many layers as to why black people are killing each other. And so, yeah, but that's not, that, and so, but I would like, if we can, to, and please, anyone else, please participate in the discussion here. Dr. Nixon.
Just very quickly, we've been misdirected into thinking that one issue has something to do with the other, and that one should balance the other. Those two issues, as a pinpoint, have nothing to do with one another. It's like you telling me you had a car accident and me asking you, but what about those buses over there that ran off the cliff? Okay, we're talking about two accidents, but these things have nothing to do with one another. But it takes some deep diving on our part to understand why those things are not only not related, but one has nothing to do with the other. Black people can all kill each other, but it does not remove the onus on people of authority and systems of authority systematically killing black people. Two different issues.
Yes.
Just to change back for a second, I'm sorry, I am still with this Birmingham with the bombing, I'm just still having this on here. And I know we're running out of time, but I'm speaking now from the perspective of a mother. How did your mother handle this? She had a child now that was blinded by this bombing, and then she had another child that was killed by this bombing, and then you mentioned that she actually would go back, she went back into the 16th Street and was sitting at the spot basically where her child died at.
Yeah.
How did your mother, I mean, I'm speaking just from a mother, because I have two kids, and they get on my nerves, don't get me wrong, they get on my nerves. But to have something like that happen, so just out of curiosity, how did your mother handle this?
I don't know, but when she didn't handle it, I know she didn't handle it good because it was two hurt in our family. And I don't know, did that do something to her man or what? Because I know that her sitting there in that same spot, I know it did something to me, you know, just sitting there. And I couldn't take it. And I really believe it kind of did something to her, you know, for her to go back and sit right there, right under that same spot. That was her seat, but I was glad she came out of there because I didn't want to stay there. You know, when you're young, you had to follow your parents where they go, but there was one place I didn't want to follow her back to after that happened there.
Well, first and foremost, to say thank you is an understatement for sharing your time and your story with us. Unfortunately, many people have to go on to another class. It's 154 or 155. However, before we end, please know that Sarah's going to be with us for later on this afternoon, this evening, at 5:30. She's going to be marching with us from Haley Hall to Langdon Hall. and she will continue telling her story. So hopefully you'll be able to join us. Yes.
I know we're ending this, but I want to say especially to our young people, this is not a Hollywood movie. This impacted us profoundly.
Yeah.
And when I say us, I'm talking about the beloved community. And if you can imagine a world where there is no internet, there's no Snapchat, there's nothing. But in an instant, when those girls were killed, our sisters were killed. I have never met Miss Sarah, but she knows that she is my sister and her sister got killed. We know these young ladies by first name. Before I walked in here, I called someone and said, I am going to see Addie Mae's sister. Addie Mae needs no last name. That is how profound this is. It's not about a movie, it's not about an article, it's not about journalism. It is about a world that profoundly changed when she lost her sister and I lost my family members through that extension. And that same thing happened to millions of people of color who mourned with this woman and that church community. And so I want us to feel what this is really about. This is about a feeling. This is not about a historical incident. It is a deep and profound feeling. Touch her if you can and see if you can feel the feeling.
And with that said, that leads to why we are intentionally discussing becoming the beloved community, because we are not the beloved community. So this evening, the conversation continues after the march at 5:30. And okay. This evening at 5:30, there is a march from Haley Hall to Langdon Hall, and Miss Sarah will continue the conversation, and then we will go out, leaving Langdon Hall, walking from Langdon Hall to Sanford Hall, where we will prepare for the tolling of the bells at the time that it was estimated that Dr. King was assassinated. So we invite everyone to join us. And most importantly, this is not, as Dr. Nixon said, this is not just any story. This is about pain. These are issues that we need to discuss if we say that we want to see change. So I ask you to continue to participate in the conversations with us today, tomorrow, and ongoing in your own individual communities. Because if we're not talking to each other, we're going to continue to witness more bombings and more shootings, and racism will continue to exist. So thank you for your time.